Welcome, everyone. My name is Jakir Manela. I'm proud to serve as the CEO of Adamah, the largest Jewish environmental organization leading a burgeoning movement in Jewish life. At Adamah, we believe in the deep connection between people and planet, Adam and Adamah. And every day we help people feel that connection and spark Jewish inspiration and help build a more sustainable future for all people. And because we are the link between our ancestors and our descendants in this generation, we feel called to respond to the existential crises of our time with the full power of the Jewish spirit. We're gathered here in a big moment. I want to wish everybody happy Earth Day from yesterday and Yom Ha'atzmaut as well. I say that as Jews, we have Earth Day, you could say every day, but I like to say in particular every week. Shabbat is as an ecological and spiritual practice is a real gift. Um, and so we gather in the tradition of our ancestors and our values to create community here, um, and to think about the world we want to build together. And obviously, there are many issues, challenges, crises we face in the world today. Issues of peace and justice, authoritarianism, and thinking about sort of the hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchies. I hear, maybe others on this call hear, that climate, environment, sustainability just is not the top thing everybody's thinking about right now. We're thinking about democracy. We're thinking about, right, physical safety. But we know that everything is interconnected. All life is connected. All needs are interrelated. And so we do this work in the spirit of all peace and well-being and needs of all people. That's why one of our core values at Adamah is peoplehood and planethood, the commitment to build bridges for the Jewish people from Israel and the diaspora to create a more sustainable future together. We do that by creating encounters, connections between young adult Israelis and our staff and participants at our two retreat centers, Proston and Isabel Friedman, between our campus student leaders and Israeli young adults by bringing them all to UN climate conferences in years past, by leading trips to Israel through our New York office, national trips, and with young people, teens, the Jewish Green Business Network connecting Israeli and American venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, young professionals, really leaders in all the different sustainable businesses out there to do great work together, to create mentorships, and to decarbonize Jewish life together. And we're hoping to build that climate tech bridge to bring to the 500 Jewish organizations in our Jewish Climate Leadership Coalition who are creating climate action plans. What a great opportunity to work with the leaders of the Jewish world and Israel world and climate tech. So we do all that work and we think about, in this moment with Earth Day, with Yom Ha'atzmaut, like what do we stand for and who do we stand with? And as we say at Adamah, we believe we believe in peoplehood and planethood, and we believe in peace building through environmental cooperation. That is what we stand for, and there is no group and organization that we stand more proudly with than the Arava Institute. Our Institute for Environmental Studies, really, for many years, I've said these are my heroes in the world. Really want to thank you, Dr. Tareq Ahmed, the CEO, for your partnership. Thank you, Rachel, for your partnership. Friends of Arava, thank you, Rina. Thank you, Shahar and Itamar, our panelists today. Thank you to all the Israelis and Palestinians, people from all over the world who have invested themselves, their minds and hearts and energies into the work of the Arava Institute. Really grateful to be in partnership with you today and grateful to pass to my friend and partner, Rachel, to welcome us as well. Rachel, to you.
Thanks, Jakir. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm Rachel Calico. I'm the CEO of Friends of the Arava Institute. The partnership with Adamah is wonderful and strong and very natural and easy to pursue. Friends of the Arava Institute works in the U.S. to promote the Arava Institute, work with universities, public awareness programming like this, and other efforts to support the Institute. Earlier this month, I'm only going to speak for 1 minute, turn it over to the panel. Earlier this month, the 4 NASA astronauts returned from the Artemis 2 mission. One of the astronauts reflected that when she saw the beauty of the Earth from space, Seeing it from afar highlighted for her our common humanity, how small the earth is and how much we are intertwined on this planet. We have one shared environment. For 30 years, the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies has used the reality of this shared environment as the tool to pursue environmental cooperation, bringing together Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, and others. This work, born out of the need to address common challenges such as water, energy, and food security, has provided the foundation to nurture relationships and understanding that may start by addressing the environment, but those relationships soon grow beyond that. In fact, today, when we see the constant news reports of the war and destruction, it's easy to wonder if there is opportunity for cooperation. And the Arava Institute demonstrates that it is possible to transcend that polarization and that conflict. This is a path of hope, resilience, and impact, a path forward grounded in dialogue and engagement. And it starts with our shared natural resources. Jakir talked about environmental cooperation, environmental peace building, and that's what you'll hear more about. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm pleased to turn this back over to Jakir for this wonderful panel.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Just looking at all these wonderful faces of folks that are choosing at this date and time to be part of this conversation really gives me a lot of hope and chizuk and strength. So it's great to be together, and it's really an honor to learn from these four incredible panelists. Uh, I cannot do it justice, so I will just invite our Arva panelists to introduce yourselves first. Maybe we can start with Rina, and then our Adamah panelists, and really looking forward to this conversation. Rina, to you.
Thank you. And it is very touching to see, to see everybody here. I froze for a moment. Here we are. So my name is Rina Kedem. My work as a researcher and program director is in the field of environmental policy and transboundary environmental cooperation. At the Arava Institute, I both teach and run different projects within our Center for Applied Diplomacy, a lot with my Jordanian work partner, Dr. Suleiman Halassa. And we both came to the Institute, to the Arava Institute in 2006 as students, and continued in this path of multicultural environmental cooperation since. Also in the international realm of everywhere there is conflict, we find some level of environmental cooperation. So I'll also talk about that later. And last thing I'll say in my introduction that I reconnected to my personal Jewish roots through the Jewish environmental world I encountered actually in California, in Tawanda, for those who know, right outside of Yosemite. So for me, the coming together of these organizations is actually closing a certain circle of very deep loves and actually the foundations of what I do and who I am. So thank you, and I dedicate this session to the people of these lands and the lands and the bridge between us. So thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. It's really an honor and pleasure to be with you. I'm also very happy to see few alumni on this call, alumni of the Arava Institute. My name is Tareq Abu Hamid. I'm the executive director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies. I'm a Palestinian from East Jerusalem. I joined the Arava Institute in 2008. The reason I joined this wonderful organization because I'm a strong believer on the power of science to connect people. It's science diplomacy, environmental diplomacy. We live in a region that shares most of the natural resources, and these shared resources can be a great tool to give people the opportunity to humanize each other.
I guess I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Shahar Sadeh. I'm the director of Adamah New York Community Impact Hub, and we're connecting people and planet with purpose here in New York. and across the world with Israel and beyond. But also relevant background to this exciting talk today is that about 20 years ago or so, I was a coordinator of a forum for regional sustainability in Israel, where we worked with Israeli Palestinians and Jordanians. This is how I had the pleasure of meeting Tareq. And later on, I wrote a PhD on environmental peace building and peacemaking, and naturally that brought me to the Arava Institute often, and later on, even as a researcher, continue to be in close collaboration with Arava Institute. And this is all to say that I always believed that environmental issues can establish this optimistic field of practice, or the politics of hope, as we call it. And I believe they can and they should be an important engine in regional resolution process. So I'm grateful to be doing this webinar together with all of you.
Thank you, Shahar. My name is Itamar Kohn, and I'm the director of Adamah SF in the Bay Area, where we cultivate vibrant Jewish life in deep connection with the earth and celebrate earth-based Judaism and its wisdom. And in a almost past life, I was one of the co-founders, together with Rina, of a place called the ECOMI Center, and where we brought Israelis, Palestinians, and internationals together to study peace and sustainability, which was a bit of a spin-off from the Arava Institute. And I hold a master's in peace and conflict management from Haifa University, from the international program there. I'm very excited about it. For me, this is like a bridging of the worlds, and I'm very excited about opening this gateway for renewed collaboration, and really curious to see what's going to come out of this. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Itamar. Thank you, Shahar. Thank you, Tareq. Thank you, Rina. And again, thank you all for being here today. So without further ado, let's jump into discussion. I have some questions for each panelist, some questions for all the panelists, and then we are very eager to hear questions from all of you. So my first question is for my friend and hero, Tareq. Tareq, yesterday was Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's a day that, as we've discussed, is a national celebration for some and manifestation of aspirations for safety and self-determination. And at the same time, a day of deep grief for others, known as a national calamity. So how do you, as the Arava Institute, and I also have to ask you as Tareq, with the diversity of perspectives all around you, how do you approach this day, these past few days, but this day in particular, and such conflicting and sort of hotly contested issues in your space? How do you do it?
First of all, this is really, I think I'm mute. No. First of all, this is really a complicated question, but to give our audience here a perspective of the meaning of the feeling that we have during such a period and during such special day, the Arava Institute is an academic and research institution that brings Palestinians, Israelis, Jordanians, Moroccans, international students to study together at our campus in Kibbutz Ktura. It's a university-level academic program in the southern tip of Israel. Students study together and live together 24/7. And when I say 24/7, I mean it. We are in a kibbutz. Students go to the same dining room, to the same classroom, and at the end of the day, they share rooms for a semester or two. That means they live with each other at least for 4 months. And unfortunately, we live in a very dynamic region. Every day there is something new. There is a war, there is a conflict, there is a terror attack, there is settler violence, and you have Independence Day. The nature or the foundation of the Arava Institute is based on or built on the dialogue through living together, and also dialogue by discussing the situation that we live in. We have a dialogue forum for the students. It's a weekly session, at least 3 hours a week, where students discuss Independence Day, Nakba, culture, religion, serving in the army, living in Gaza, living in refugee camp in the West Bank. So discussing these complex issues lead to understanding the other. And understanding does not mean that we agree with each other. We continue to disagree, but we understand. And this level of understanding leads to trust. And trust is the most scarce commodity in the Middle East. This is how we manage to build partnerships. This is how we manage to run such a program during this very challenging period. And not only that, we managed to keep all of our partnerships in the region since October 7th. We even managed to widen these partnerships. Now we work with new partners from Morocco, from Jordan, from Palestine. Our academic program is still running, and that's the foundation of trust. At the Arava Institute, we choose to acknowledge Independence Day or any other activity as a gesture of hope, attempting to replace the narrative of fear and mistrust with a commitment to living together and building a better future. When the students come together, they discuss terror attacks, they discuss settler violence, they discuss Independence Day, but also they understand that there's a lot of common things, a lot of shared interest, a lot of shared threats that we have to deal with. The dialogue, we know it's sometimes influenced by crisis, but we, by living together in a campus, the Arab students, the Jewish students, and also the internationals, understand that we face shared risks, shared threats, and they understand that there is also here, because we share everything, and we under the threat of climate change, and we have this conflict. This leads them to understand that we have a shared destiny. So discussing these complexities build these very solid, sustainable community that refuses to be an enemy. They see each other, they humanize each other, and if we manage to do that during such a difficult period since October 7th, and with the Iran war, this was actually great proof that the methodology of dialogue, science diplomacy, climate diplomacy, environmental diplomacy is a great tool to that we can use really to build a sustainable future for this region.
Oh, man, thank you so much, Tareq. Thinking about just the deep spiritual practice. How do we orient to trust versus mistrust, or fear versus hope, and just the courage that you and your team and everyone participating to live together, not to deny the violence, but to focus on the commonalities and this idea of like shared destiny, to refuse to be an enemy. It's like deep, deep Torah, deep Torah. Thank you. Thank you. Um, so Rina, to continue this conversation around your amazing work at Arava and with all of the things, about sort of peace building, but sort of focusing on the environmental aspect, the work that you do to bridge environmental action and peace building is so unique, Rina. So just tell us more about like, what are you able at Arava to achieve that's maybe unique compared to other environmental organizations? What are you able to achieve that other peace building organizations cannot? Just tell us about that sort of Venn diagram. What's unique about that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting anecdote to look into. And I'll start by how we work beyond, or we can reach as doing both environment and peace work. Because a lot of the time people ask us, like, what's more important, the peace work or the environmental work? And then we got to explain how they're just truly interconnected. And beyond environmental organizations or environmental work, um, what Tareq mentioned, we have a very strong, it's a community experience. So it goes beyond environmental action or activism or environmental leadership by the fact that the community living is so intense, whether you're a student, as I have experienced, or staff or faculty. The fact that people live together day in and day out provides something. It's like a melting pot of a transformational experience, which a lot of activism, and I can speak also in terms of my experience as an environmental activist, when you're strongly motivated by activism, which could be fueled by anger or a strive for change, it could be very unsustainable on a personal level. Living and doing this with a community of peers and learning about yourself through the intensity of community life, that brings a completely different aspect to peace building, to environmental work. And in terms of the peace building, also from more personal experience, I still do, and I worked in a lot of different dialogue settings. And I have to say that very fast, many times, if you've experienced dialogue work, which is very important, but many times you feel like you can reach a glass ceiling. Okay, we can talk, we can do initiatives trying to solve things in a person to person, people to people. And I always felt I needed something with my hands, something tangible that I can actually feel and work on together with my colleagues, with Palestinians, with Jordanians, with Israelis. And environmental topics provide the tangible, long-lasting aspect to the peace-building component, because also environmental topics are cross-sectoral and I would say multi-dimensional in their nature. So they require us to cooperate between different tiers and between, in a way, different sectors. And it brings, again, this capacity to work on things we can see. If it's gray water systems, if it's renewable energy resources, if it's through ecotourism and environmental businesses, etc. And lastly, I'll say that another part of I would say a secret ingredient to our work is our network of alumni. We have a vast community, around 2,000 people who went through this, what I would call this transformational experience of living together and experiencing this work. And because it's such an on campus, because we live day in and day out, the changes and the network, we carry each other forth. So we do become a very strong family. Like many people are aware of these intense experiences that are hard to put in words, and we can share them with people who went through something similar. So our alumni network is vibrant and alive, where we support each other. A lot of our alumni are in key positions, whether in the environmental realm or in the peace building realm. And that's also where it kind of comes together.
Man, thank you so much, Rina. I know in years past have, spoken with folks at Arava and looked at sort of the alumni and what incredible roles they have moved on to, and then to see leadership in the Israeli and Palestinian worlds coming from this shared experience and what that creates as possibilities. It's really profound and beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do. So then turning to my colleagues at Adamah, I want to start with you, Dr. Shahar Sadeh. Uh, you have led trips as director of Adamah New York, um, trips to Israel for Jewish environmental leaders. You can define what is a Jewish environmental leader, different definitions, but led those trips. What are some of the biggest aha moments for you on those trips that you've witnessed, and how have you brought those back to the US and, both in connection to the Arva and in connection to your work at Adamah New York?
Sure. So I think that for American environmentalists to see the very vibrant civil society in Israel is a real eye-opener. From afar, you hear about Startup Nation, and it's a concept that you have in mind, or you hear about, of course, what the government is doing, and larger institutions like the Jewish National Fund or the Sochnut, right? But when confronting with a smaller day in and day out organization on the ground, and they're so creative and so hopeful and so under-resourced, but still get to amazing result was amazing. So I think, when we were in East Jerusalem with Sinsila or in Food Savers, or of course with the Arava Institute, with the Bedouin community, to see the processes of capturing water from the air or purifying water from the local sewage and creating something out of nothing. This very locally small scale, decentralized way to do things in the desert while also promoting the goodwill between neighbors and mitigating potential conflict with local authorities or entities. That sense of that was an aha moment. And I think they bring much of it back when they come back to New York, this sense of hopefulness and the can-do approach fills many of them with optimism and renewed sense of ownership of what is it to be an environmentalist in our day and time, because many environmentalists, as we all know, are in a constant battle mode, right? But even the participants who are from the private sectors that were with us, not all of us came from the civil society groups. And they're not trying to change the world completely, but changing it in a more narrow path. They came back with new energy, reinvigorated. And it's funny to see how this place that in the world is conceived, often as cynical and challenging, and of course it often is. We're in the middle of a war. It creates a hopeful disposition for those visitors. And of course, they all adopt the mantra of it's complicated or embracing complexity, because there's no other way to experience Israel or to try to reflect and then share back with their communities here. Some are Zionists, some are not, of what it is to be an environmental activist or to do environmental work in Israel.
Yes, I know. I know we talk about it a lot, and we often reflect on like the amazing work that Tareq and Rina are talking about. It's not in almost any American media, right? So people just aren't aware of it, don't see it, don't know about it. So without these invitations, these opportunities through your work, Shahar and Adamah, and the work that Arava does to reach out, right? How do we help people see this, right? And find that hope. I've had so many experiences where somebody's just so angry about what's going on, so hopeless, but then to actually connect with Adamah or Arava and see what's happening. It's like more of a holistic, different, and kind of healing conversation where hope and like empowerment, you said ownership, Shachar, right? Like we can do something, right? And there are people doing something. So thank you. So to you, Itamar, you we all have a unique perspective on this. You have worked in both the Israeli-Palestinian conflict context and here in the American Jewish community on these issues, right? And so from that, unique experience and perspective, what we've heard from our partners today, and what you know about through all your years of work with the Arava Institute, how does that show up for you when you lead Adamah SF in San Francisco Bay Area? These values, these perspectives, these relationships. Tell us about how that shows up for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I just want to, this is a really important question, I think, and I want to invite everybody to reflect on, just from what we know about the Arava Institute and what we heard from Tareq and Rina, what does that, inspire in us about where we are, wherever it is that we are. And I'll say that when I think about that question, maybe I think about it in two layers. One is, I think that the Jewish community is experiencing a kind of crisis around Israel right now. There's a confusion. There's a lot of heartache. There's we saw the perpetual war happening. There's a question about the values of the current government. So a lot of, especially, environmental progressive Jews are having questions about, okay, how do I relate? What is my role? And I think that from that perspective, and building on what both Tareq and Rina have spoken about, what happens when we actually connect with somebody rather than think about it, read about it, think about it. But so connecting with people that actually are doing the work of dialogue and of understanding each other and getting close to it, for me, is one of the most powerful ways for us to get clarity. right? So we're not just thinking about it and reading about it, but we are connecting with people right there on the ground and hearing from them. And I think that that's something that's missing a little bit in our discourse in North America around this issue right now. Connecting with people on the ground and hearing from them directly. So in that perspective, that's I'm really excited about bringing more voices from the ground to our community here to really engage. And it's not to be to tell them how to think about it, but to really engage and hear other people and hear their perspectives and their life experiences. The other layer of it is to internally to the Jewish community that is experiencing polarization and experiencing a rift, and people are not talking to each other in some case and canceling each other in some case, and to get inspired, I hope, by people that are living in a real violent conflict and dealing with that and with war and are choosing to not dehumanize the other, are choosing to be curious, to not fall into the trap of black and white, or to the trap of just like ambivalence. There's good and there's bad, but to really be inspired by that also internally for our community and how we address rifts and disagreements, so that we can stay whole. Like for us, like the value of community is really, really important. It's a way for us to actually feel whole in this world. It's not just an addition to life. It's a really important part of life. And so, getting inspired by the work of the Arava Institute for how we do that internally.
Wow. Thank you, Tamar. Really quite a special group here. So I'm going to ask a couple questions to sort of dyads. My first sort of two-person question is for Rina first, and then back to you, Itamar. So this question goes like this: we hear from the sort of binary perspectives, the pro-Israel perspective, the pro-Palestine perspective, from both of those perspectives, that now is not the time for dialogue. Direct contrast to what you just said, Itamar. No, not the time for dialogue. Or even worse, that anyone who engages in that kind of diplomacy is actually a traitor. It's actually betraying our people. And this is a argument or an accusation that has existed for a long time and has become even worse or more intense since October 7th or in Gaza. And we also hear that maybe more here in America, that this is really a time to focus all our attention on the war or on the fight against anti-Semitism, protecting democracy. All these issues really critical. That environmental issues are secondary at best, maybe negligible. Like just we do not have Ainli Koch. We don't have the strength. We don't have the time. We have more important things to do. So you've got a lot of perspectives kind of trying to like delegitimize the work that you both do. How do you respond to that? How's that affected you, and how do you respond? I think I want to ask Rina to share first, and then Itamar.
Yeah, complicated topic indeed. As Shahar said, it's one of the things we repeat about how complicated it is. And I'll say that part of how I work with it or how we work with it, with people who say this is not the time or feeling like if you engage with the other side, that it's kind of a traitor, etc. Experience. One, when I hear that, I try to bring it back to people who I have the chance to engage with and say, like, what is it in us that does not allow us to go beyond our own boundaries? Meaning, what are we afraid of? Are we afraid to challenge ourselves? Are we afraid from what somebody else will say about us, cooperating with what would be seem a counteract? And I'll be honest, sometimes when people tell me, it's just not aligned with my values right now, I'll be honest and say, I fully respect that. And I hope there will be a time, like if you're open to checking and reassessing that, I will be here. And I mainly share from my experience that it was only when I was able to hear and listen to opinions completely different than to my own, that's where the piecework starts. If we remain in our comfort zone and staying within our own pods or camps, I think there's very little we can do to transform our realities. But when I do this, and many times, by the way, I work with youth, like sometimes we have youth groups come to the Arava Institute and they tell me, they look me in the eyes and they say, you're working with Gaza right now. You're helping, you're doing humanitarian aid in Gaza. That's like being traitors. You're helping our enemy. And sometimes I invite them and say, again, I respect your position. And when you're ready internally to hear something, or make sure you're ready, because if you're just going to tell me this as a motto or stereotype, it's not going to be a real conversation. I understand where you're coming from. I acknowledge the pain, the trauma, the hardship that people are going through right now, and see where this path has led us to more violence. If we want to somehow stop this circle, we have to start somewhere. And starting somewhere is being willing to challenge ourselves and be able to hear very hard things. So that's my answer for the first part. And I'll just say that I also honor my colleagues in Jordan, where, and also in Palestine, some of these experiences of working together are actually life-threatening for some of them. And so I don't take these partnerships for granted. And we somehow manage to sustain and keep our partnerships. And like Tareq said, they even grow. And I'll be again, maybe honest and more challenging that on this land, we don't really have the privilege to say, I don't want to hear or I don't want to talk. Like our shared reality, like Tareq said, our shared destiny, I don't think allows us to avoid. So that's I think an experience where you live here day in and out. You feel it. I share destiny with my Jordanian neighbors. Sometimes what happens here on an environmental level could be more relevant than what happens on an environmental level in Tel Aviv. Like we speak about this feeling of shared destiny for a long time, and it's very real. Again, it's visceral. When there's oil spill or something like that, we are the ones that need to respond first and suffer first. And if we don't work together, it's not going to happen. And I think I'll be on the positive note. I do feel there's a growing international acceptance and understanding to the inherited values of environmental issues being transboundary, so acknowledging their transboundary nature. And in that sense, when people tell me it's not the time to work with environment, again, I'll say we're enough people. If your passion is towards democracy and working internally within the US or within the Middle East, please do that. I think there are enough people, and what we need to do is follow our passion and follow what we're called to do. And we know there's one of those beautiful statements of what we need is a world with people who come alive. So there's enough of us, we can each find our joy and what we're called to do. And I happen to be in this crossroads of people who love to do both. And there's a lot of work to be done. So there's everyone can share on like everything's important right now. And I do feel the values come together of environment and democracy and sustainable leadership, participatory approaches. And it comes together as we see. And a lot of my circles are engaged deeply in this work.
Thank you so much, Rina. Itamar.
So Rina said more or less everything that I would have thought to say. So maybe I'll just add very briefly that first of all, I came into my political awakening as a teen with the assassination of Rabin. And so that's 30, some bit more than 30 years ago. And I think that I've heard this argument pretty much consistently since, that this is not the time. There's other, this is, and so I would ask a different question, or a question back, like, when is the time? Because I haven't heard that it's the time pretty much since then. And all I see is, a degradation of the conditions that might allow us to have that. So that's one thing I haven't. And for the other, yeah, just resisting the either or framing of that mindset that, oh, if you work on one thing, then it detracts from my cause or what I care about. And it doesn't need to be an either or. And I think that there's enough people, and if we get more people engaged, more people to do the things that they're passionate about and to lean into creating the more beautiful world that they can see and know that can happen, then there's surely, like Rina said, enough of us to do all of those things and find the interconnectedness of all of those different causes. Yeah, I think that's the only thing I could add to that.
Thank you, Itamar. Thank you, Rina. Beautiful. So then over to you, Tareq and Shahar, this next question. So here in the United States, I think we're all probably aware, we are seeing a wave of regression in our environmental policy, coming from the federal government specifically. Folks point to all the changes as basically amounting to kind of a dismantling of the Environmental Protection Agency, or what looks like that, opening protected lands to resource extraction, canceling incentives for solar, threatening environmental organizations with sanctions. Much more. I was in San Francisco last year on the eve of Earth Day, right when they were talking about revoking the tax-exempt status of all of the environmental orgs and labeling us domestic terrorists. And I was at an event with a few thousand environmentalists, and I was like, oh no, they're going to come for us all. We're all here in the same place. It's very scary. And we also see policies from the Israeli government that have an impact here. So how do you see the Israeli government and its policies as a support or obstruction to your work? Or in this, Shachar, you might also speak about the American policies. And what might we learn about how to engage with those dynamics? How do Arava and Adamah sort of engage with these dynamics? How do we adapt in this moment, given the policies on the ground? I think I want to start again with you, Tareq, and then Shahar.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Jakir. In Arabic, we have a famous phrase that says, you cannot cover or hide the sun with your hand, which means the sun here means the truth. And the work that we do here at the Arava Institute, the environmental diplomacy, the science diplomacy, protecting the shared environmental and natural resources is the truth that we work on. Working with this government is very challenging, but we at the Arava Institute, instead of boycotting such a government, we know how to work within the system itself. Everything we do in the West Bank and our solar energy projects on solar desalination, off-grid wastewater treatment, our projects in Gaza, establishing green camps that use renewable energies to produce electricity, to produce water, to treat wastewater. We get the approval of the Israeli government for that. So the government indirectly sees the value of the work that we implement in the region. Working in the West Bank, working in Gaza, working in the Negev with the Bedouin communities, the Israeli government sees the value of that, sees the protection of the environment, and the Arava Institute does. Working regionally means that you need to deal not only with the Israeli government but also with the Palestinian government, also with the Jordanian government. And the methodology that we use, I said, it's not only the dialogue, trust, building understanding. What motivates our partners when you ask someone who does similar work, what motivates you? The answer is, I do it because it's good for my people. And the governments of the region sees that value. even though publicly they say that they are, against the work that we do. But we managed to continue our work, run programs for the Israeli government, training programs for the foreign ministry, in touch with the Minister of Environment. The Palestinians rely almost 100% when it comes to, the energy resources. They rely on Israel. So any renewable energy project that you implement in the West Bank, that means less pollution in Israel, less production in Israel. Some public servants see the value of that. And again, as I said, we know how to work within the system here. It is very challenging. It is very hard. There are a lot of politicians from the current government who are against the work that we do. But the same government, gives you permits to work in Gaza, to work in the West Bank, to establish really mega projects in the West Bank with the approval of the IDF.
Thank you, Tareq. Thank you. Jakir, thoughts on
Yeah,
that and America, both, platforms.
I'm more focused. Okay, so let me try to say a few things. So first, thankfully, my work here is not directly affected by the Israeli government. Besides different peace and war decisions, let's call it like that, and the backlash that we've heard about, Itamar and others refer to. So, but I will say that a couple days ago, our friends, both Adamah and Arava, Yossi Abramowitz, he wrote an op-ed, The Time of Israel, and he basically was mourning about the road not taken, meaning what if the Israeli government would have been pro rather than mostly anti-environmental policies? What would have happened if not only the Arava area that throughout the day, 100% of the electricity is produced from renewable energy? What if that would have been the case for Israel? And Israel indeed is great on technological advancement and some policy achievement that could have made us be good candidates for green lights for the nation, right? All a goyim, but a green one. And I think that what we can say is that the current affairs, the current war did trigger these oil supply shocks and created this paradox that we keep hearing about, which countries fall back in the short term on coal and diesel as the supply chain is disrupted. But simultaneously, it's also accelerating this long-term push toward energy independence through renewables, or reframing the clean energy as security strategic goal rather than anything to do with climate solution or those tree huggers, right? So inshallah, this war with its massive environmental destruction and pollution will bring a wishful shift to renewables, even if the motivation for it is different. So to go back to your question, Jakir, I think finding the ways to highlight different incentives that are framed in chewable language for a policymaker and for a politician that doesn't speak necessarily about climate change, but about energy security or distributed networks or resiliency. So changing the framework is a good learning from us. So this is what I can take from current situation and try to bring it back home to us. And as Tareq was saying, sometimes people will go with these policies and even support it, even as officially they're against it.
I want to thank you, Shahar. I just want to jump in because something that Tareq said, I think is worth pausing on for a moment. I think that there's even for me, even me that I come from Israel, I can fall into the trap of looking at the Israeli government as this monolithic thing, right? And we often hear, try to separate the government from the people, and then inside the people we try, hey, let's have some nuance. But to hear Tareq speak about how the Arava Institute is managing to find opportunities, partners, points of light, even in what is, the most right-wing government that Israel has ever had, in maybe the most inflamed security situation that Israel maybe has ever had. So that's like, for me, that's powerful to be reminded of that, and the invitation that is to resist, the making things superficial and like painting a whole body that's made out of a lot of different parts with one brushstroke. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Itamar. Resist the sort of binary thinking and see, embrace, and step into the complexity and find that hope. So one more question from me for all the panelists, and then excited to get to our group here. So this is for everybody. I think we'll go maybe Rina, Itamar, Shahar, Tareq. That's the order. Okay. So here's the question. We are, newsflash, everybody, we're living through challenging times. We see wars, escalating violence, polarization, erosion of democracy, and continued and ever increasingly frequent and intense climate disasters. So that's a lot. You're all leaders in different venues. How do you figure out what is yours to do as a person in your role, as organizational roles that you lead? What is yours to do versus not? And then part of that, I think, is just how do you maintain hope? What do you do to nourish your own, fire and hope to continue this work? Rina, Itamar, Shahar, Tareq.
I'll try to do these. We put two big questions. Try to do this briefly. So, in terms of discerning what's ours and what's not, as Tareq will say, we constantly need to discern. It's hard work every day, day in and out. What helps me discern what's mine to do, and also in terms of my organizational capacity, is to really engage actively with the vision of the Arava Institute, and also elaborate or make it flexible when we need to. Like one of the things we know we do best in terms of the how we reach applied environmental relationships, diplomacy, agreements is through the keyword of relationships. So that's part of what we do, which is very hard to quantify in terms of an objective or how do you quantify a relationship. So that's something that we personally we changed and decided to put in the forefront of our work in one of the departments of the Institute and stand behind it. Like you asked at the beginning, what we stand for and what we know how to do. So we know how to create professional and personal relationships. Personally, what helps me also is deciding whether I'm in a mediator or activist point in my life. And if there's a certain cause that I feel I need to push a certain justice role or a specific outcome, or if I'm here to bring a different voice as a mediator. And many times when I lecture, when I work in projects on the ground, I have to discern between these two, and I just learned that they change throughout time. That sometimes I'm in an activist role, and sometimes I'm a mediator. And what helps a lot in all of our work that we mentioned is naming the things as they are. And I'll end with what brings hope, and I think connects to the discerning and that brings hope to the world we're in is standing behind the fact that we can be in solidarity with both sides or with the binary approach without it compromising our humanity. And I think Tareq is one of the people that lives it to a very deep place of how to walk that talk of we can be in solidarity with all sides at the moment. And that doesn't take away from my relationship with either side. So solidarity is something I walk with very deeply that gives me hope. And finding the small successes and creating on the ground impact through our environmental work and seeing the thousands of people we've touched through our work in EcoMe, which is a strong relationship to the Arava Institute, and through projects I've managed. So really a few thousands of people that I've seen transformed through this environmental cooperation work in hardest of times, as now as well. And that's what gives me hope to start every day and renew my commitment, and my kids that remind me why I do this on the most practical level, that I want them to have different opportunities or more opportunities than what we have or had.
Thank you. Itamar.
I'll answer the second part of the question about how do I, find hope or stay motivated, because that's a hard one for me. And I just want to be honest that it's hard. It's really hard right now to do that, to stay with hope and to stay motivated in the face of just the enormity and the overwhelm of what we're looking at. And I think that the way that when I manage to do that, it's interesting. It's on two polar opposites. It's either in the very, very small things. The other day I went for a walk by a waterfall and could feel the vibrancy of the natural world, and not just immediately, without words and without thinking, gave me hope. And I cannot really put it into words, but the connection, so sometimes in the smallest things, in joining one of our youth programs and seeing a youth that I've tracked over a few years and see where they're now, and I'm like, oh, hope, like not just like experiencing, transformation. And the other side is the other extreme of like doing this more intellectual exercise of taking in the really long view, like over several hundred years, and to not be dismayed by, oh, in the last 2 years or in the last 3 years, we have, been set back by this and that, and it seems so hard. But if we take a long view, oh, I can see like how things are actually on the right track. Not on all, not in every metric, but in so many. And so I kind of oscillate between these two when I manage to find, the middle path that keeps me hopeful and motivated to do what I do.
Thank you, Itamar. I really appreciate that. Shahar.
Yeah. Thank you both, Itamar and Rina. You inspired me just to hear your voices and your framing. First of all, to decide how to stay in my lane and what's mine and what not. I'm not too good at that, if I have to admit. And especially when it comes to these two passions, both environment and peace building, I feel that I have to do both. I can't just choose one. But I think leading the tours to Israel of environmentalists, living their excitement through viewing through their eyes, their aha moment, their connection, you can hear the everything is clicking. They have suddenly an understanding of the whole rather than segments of the pictures. And that's really gratifying. And in those moments, and it's not just in tours and workshops and in other things we're doing here in New York, living it through other people's life, through their educational experiences or immersive experiences, when they get connected, when you feel that you empowered someone to change their course, that's what gives me hope. And beyond that, as Itamar said it beautifully, just being outside and connecting me as a people to the nature and understanding my purpose in this process brings a lot of internal quiet, I guess, in a way. Just I'm doing what needs to be done. I'm doing it when it needs to be done, with the people that I can influence. So I think staying in this type of lane of understanding my impact in my community is what motivates me to continue further.
Man, thank you, Shahar. Tareq, close us out.
Very, very inspiring. I actually, what keeps our hope is actually the impact of the work of the Arava Institute. We see the empathy, the solidarity that the alumni of the Arava Institute show to each other. I'll tell you two stories very shortly. One of our partners in Gaza, she managed to leave Gaza and go to Egypt, and she has also a home in Ramallah. And during the Iran war, she contacted one of our Jewish staff members saying, "Look, I have a home in Ramallah. Ramallah is safer than Tel Aviv. Go live in my home in Ramallah." This woman, she lost her family during the war. She lost her home in Gaza during the war. But this is the power of what I told you. It's the understanding to build the trust, to humanize each other through the work that we do. And the other story we all hear about the settler violence in the West Bank, but we never hear about the work of the Jewish Israeli team of the Arava Institute in the West Bank, in Area C, installing solar energy, wastewater treatment plants for the Palestinian villagers to stay in their land in the West Bank. We are in an organization at the Araba Institute that we live the atmosphere that really the power of love is much stronger than the power of the conflict. Explaining the Araba Institute to you, you know, it's like explaining Jerusalem to someone who never been in Jerusalem. I love Jerusalem. That's why I'm giving you this example. To understand really the Araba Institute, you have to come and visit and see the action when it happens between the students, see our projects in the Negev, in the West Bank, hear from our Palestinian partners about their work with the Araba Institute.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. This is an amazing group and really excited now to hear from our audience. So please, everyone, feel free to put questions into the chat. One particular question that we all think about, all the panelists and I think about, Rachel as well. How can Adamah and the Arava Institute do more together? So that's one question. You could throw some ideas into the chat. What would you like to see us do together? And all the above. We're open to questions, comments, feedback. We have plenty of time here to be in dialogue with this wonderful group. So the floor is open.
Looks like we did such an amazing job, and the
Yeah.
audience is stunned.
Well, that's a first. 40 Jews quiet about this topic. Is this actually happening? Tareq, have you ever seen that before? No, I think there is something like whole about what's been shared here, that just to sit with it, you know, years. Yeah, Rina.
I just want to add a prompt to our audience and community here that part of what we do this, like why we initiated this webinar, is that we're also looking at what can come of this connection. So we'll be very curious to hear of people who, those of you who live in North America, or here, most of you are in North America at the moment. Yeah, what do you see? Because also, we'll tell you a secret from behind the scenes. Some of it, when Itzema and I were thinking about this, we were thinking so complicated. It's after the Independence Day, it's the Nakba Day, it's Earth Day, the war. And we just said, we're going to bring these in. So we weave them into the questions. So that's also where we welcome your feedback. I see there's one question.
Please feel free to talk about this, Rina and Tareq. How do you get more people engaged in the U.S. and abroad, and how do you get the word out?
Yeah, first of all, you heard our story, and now you have story to tell. Tell this story to your friends. And as I said, it's really hard to explain what we do. You have to come and see this in action. If you cannot come and you see people that who really want to learn about the work of Adamah and the work of the Araba Institute, we have tours in the region to see the projects that we implement. Check our website. We have a wonderful alumni network in the US. If you want to hear from these alumni about their stories studying and living at Arava Institute with Palestinians, with Jordanians, we'll be more than happy to arrange that for your communities.
Thank you, Tareq.
And
Also,
Yakir, let us know if you want us to answer questions we see, or how do you want to
yeah,
have them
I
all
can call
be?
them out. So just continuing, Arva, can you talk about the sort of any current research projects, focus areas for the Arva in the year ahead, let's say?
Mhm. I think as a closure would be good just for the previous question to hear from Rachel, who's the Friends of the Arava Institute. Rachel is the CEO of the organization in the US, and I'm sure she can elaborate on how to connect in the US. In terms of highlights, I think I'll let Tarek, and then I'll answer the question about how the earth helps us heal what divides us that David asked. So I think Tarek, I'll leave it to you to highlight some current research and priorities. And and then I'll return to the other question.
Yeah, we at the Araba Institute actually cover the whole spectrum of research, not only scientific research, but also applied research. We have a lot of projects on, we develop technologies to treat wastewater, to use smart irrigation systems, to implement agri-photovoltaic projects in the harsh climate that we have in the desert. So we grow crops below photovoltaic panels, and we do research on the impact of agriculture on electricity production and the impact of electricity production on agricultural performance. We do a lot of work on hydrogen as an alternative for oil. We do a lot of work also on what we call the circular economy, how really to help farms in the region to convert all of their waste into fuel, to recycle water, to use that water for crops production. This crops goes to feed animals. The animal waste becomes biofuel. So we do a lot of this work, and we do also a lot of work on social aspects of the energies that we develop and we implement in the region.
And social work also I'll add with policy. Like a lot of the times, like Tarek mentioned, we work directly with ministries, whether it's the Ministry for Environment, Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Regional Cooperation. And we actually together try to shape policies that can support transboundary work, even in these crazy times. There's professional staff within the ministries that personally give me a lot of hope because we sustained excellent relationships with them. So part of what we do is also create policies for food security or policy recommendations, whether it's domestically or in terms of the collaboration.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rina. And then Rachel, I'd love for you to talk about the prior question or this a question from Linda, just talking about alumni, maybe.
Hmm.
What are alumni doing? Can you speak
Sure.
to that as well?
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, thanks for the questions. So Tarek talked a little bit about how people can get involved, and I'll put in some notes into the chat. We run trips to the region. We actually have a study tour this fall. We'll visit some of the projects that Shahar actually mentioned and that Jakir have visited on the Adamah trips to Israel, our work with Bedouin, the projects in the Jordan Valley, meeting with students and alumni at the Institute and throughout the country. And Rina is, of course, an alum. I don't know if you said that in your intro that you first came to the institute as a student yourself. Um, and we also do programming around the country. We do things like this. Hopefully, we'll be doing more with Adamah going forward. This is a great opportunity. And we have programming both on Zoom and in person in communities around the country when people like Rina and Tareq and others visit as well. So we have a newsletter and we have information to share with people. Our alumni, actually, our University and Alumni Relations Coordinator is also on this Zoom, Brian Cran. Our alumni, we have a network of several hundred alumni in the US. There are around 2,000 alumni in total, as Rina mentioned before, spread out around the world, most of whom are in the Middle East. But here in the US, we are building our alumni network as well. Some others are on this call too, I think, and looking at how to engage them and stay connected and share their experience with their communities. These are some of our ambassadors on the ground and can share this and bring people together.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And did you have your hand raised? Did you want to say something?
I have a question actually.
Go for it.
Great. So something that's great about the Arava Institute alumni community and research community, it's very interdisciplinary, very intercultural, and it allows us to like focus on solutions rather than differences because everyone's different. Um, and I'm wondering, like in this community, people on this call, for example, how do we leverage our own community's diverse expertises and all the people are energy and skills that people are able to put towards solutions and cooperation? How do we leverage that to branch out and make more positive impact on social issues through like holistic approaches rooted in environmental wellness? It's kind of an open question for people on the call, but it seems like that's the focus of what we want to do is make social impact through interdisciplinary approaches that are rooted in the environment. And it pours over into economic things. So just wondering people's thoughts on that.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone on the panel want to jump in?
I can give the Adamah perspective for a second for what we do here in the States. We try to work both with institution and both with individuals to create a shift in perspective and in action. So there are multiple ways to engage with Adamah on the ground through our hubs or elsewhere, if it's through your Jewish community and changing the way they operate their buildings, if it's coming to our event and help with education. There's a lot of ways to connect, and I encourage you to learn as much as you can and be in touch with us. And we are not a strong advocacy organizations, but this is also a way to change the world. We do some, and others, we have partners and other environmental organizations that try to change the world through advocacy. So that's a different avenue. If you're a professional in the field, we have our Jewish Green Business Network. So again, Jakir talked about it at the beginning, but joining us and helping us grow and become more, well-rounded with as many professionals that can support the cause. So I think from a local perspective, that's what I would encourage you to do. And I saw that there was another question in the chat by David, who asked if the topic of this call was addressed, can the earth help us heal what divides us? And I think while we heard it, I think from all of us, I would say the obvious that our environment is shared with whether one likes it or not, and it cannot be managed one-sided. You cannot rehabilitate a river if you're standing on one of its banks and not thinking about the other. The water will still be contaminated, right? So by the sheer simplistic approach of working on using the earth as our shared platform, we have to engage with one another. And it's so much simpler, and everyone on the call knows it, that when you sit in a negotiation table, it's so easy to agree on the environmental aspects, and the conflict will always come into the room, but the environment can heal us individually and communally.
Can I jump in on that, Yakil, to
Yeah, I was actually
another?
going to ask, to me, this is a good sort of closing thought, closing reflections. So, Rina, Itamar, and then Tareq will take your closing reflections here.
Yeah, I wanted to continue Shahar and say, I think the essence of this work is the yes. Heal is a big word, but when Shahar also added personal and collective, I think that's what we see, what we witness, is that it definitely is a healing power. And part of what I would love to see is bringing together the earth-based practices of Adamah with what we know how to do. So I envision my hope is to do shared programs, internships, potentially, who knows, it could be both academic, professional. Shachel mentioned the Entrepreneurs Network. We can invite researchers. I think Nadav asked this question in the chat to partner together on actual research projects. So we work as I'm one of the researchers of the Institute, so definitely people are invited to think together about priorities that can be shared in the different realms and co-partner, co-design research projects and projects on the ground. And lastly, I'll just say that what helps me is, or what helps in this situation is to choose one cause and develop a deep relationship with it when in the overwhelming reality we live in. So those who are touched by this bringing together of peace work and environment, come join us. Like, you have a good home here with us.
Oh man, thank you, Rina. Itamar and Tareq.
I think
Okay, I think yeah, Itamar, go ahead.
you want to go ahead, Tareq?
Please, after you.
Okay. We're recreating the after you moment. I I feel like this question is powerful as a question as well as an answer, right? So we all have our own, answers to it, and I definitely have my own personal experience of experiencing deep healing through my connection with the earth. I also have experiences being in groups that the fact, like Shahar said, that placing something at the center that is both sacred and indispensable, and just like requires us, like Holy Blue is saying in the chat, like requires us to do the work of healing. And I wanna keep it for myself. I also want to keep it as a question, David. Can it? What would be the conditions that need to arise for that to be the reality, for that to be true?
Beautiful. Thank you, Itamar. Tareq.
Okay, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm a Palestinian from East Jerusalem. I hold, blue ID and Israeli ID. I travel within the West Bank, Jenin, Nablus, Ramallah. And also I go to Tel Aviv, Akko, Yafo, and you meet people, not only students and researchers. And you see that the vast majority on both sides wants to live in peace and they believe in peace. They want to have high education, high quality life, but at the same level, they doubt that there is a partner on the other side. And that's because actually the disconnection between the two societies, the Israeli and the Palestinian society, work on environmental issues, on education, gives people the opportunity to connect, to interact, and to humanize each other. And this is what is needed in this region. What helps me to heal is actually being on campus with the students and not being able to tell who is a Palestinian, who is Israeli, who's Jewish, who's a Muslim, who's a Christian. That is really a very powerful feeling to have during this very difficult period. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tareq. Certainly this gives me real hope and healing too. And I want to pass to my friend and partner, Rachel, from the Friends of the Arava Institute, now for her closing thoughts, and then we'll close this out. Rachel.
This has been such a great panel. Before each one of the panelists was commenting on what gives them hope, and conversations like this and working with people on a daily basis, like Rina and Tareq, Shahar, Tamar, people in Israel, people at the Institute who are doing this work, is what gives hope. And I hope that everybody here sees that there's opportunity. Where is the opportunity for healing? Where's the opportunity for growth? There are people invested in this work using the environment as the tool, as the lever for peace building and for progress. And I want to thank Adamah for this opportunity, all of you for joining us, and that we hope that this is the beginning of the conversation, as Rina said, and the beginning of the opportunity, and that you'll look to more from the Arava Institute, from Friends of the Arava Institute, and from Adamah, so we can continue this.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Tareq, Rina, Shahar, Itamar. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I heard so many powerful things. I just want to say them again for myself and just repeat some of the things that were so powerful that we heard in the last hour and a half. From Rina, to respect those who are not ready for this conversation, to acknowledge the pain and trauma that people are going through, and to be here ready and available if and when the time comes that others are ready to be in this conversation. And to, at the same time, acknowledge that we want to find a way to stop the cycle, that we want to choose to be vulnerable to hear hard things, to invite others to join us, and that we may be uniquely, not in an arrogant way, but there is something about the sort of transboundary ecological consciousness that we know from that perspective that everyone and everything is interconnected, deeply, profoundly so, that sort of once you know, you can't unknow that, so that we feel we are not able to sort of say no to that dialogue in the same way. And from that place, I mean, I want to say I've been so moved and inspired by the Arava for decades. I know of no other initiative in the Jewish world or Israel that is as deeply moving or frankly deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize. Like it is so profound, the work that you all do. And to be able to find partners and make progress in this moment with these governmental leaders is incredible. And what that represents as an invitation, what that represents as a commitment to resist the binary, to see and embrace the complexity. And so for myself as a former visitor and future visitor, I want to just endorse Tareq and Rachel and Rina's invitation to see, to go see the work, to meet alumni, to engage with the work of the Arava Institute. And then to sort of echo some of the things Itamar said, what do we do about it? Those of us who are here in America, what is ours to do to face the crisis, the confusion, the heartache, the anger, the internal tension in the Jewish community in particular? What does it mean to embrace dialogue, to choose to get close to this, to choose to focus, to meet people on the ground and not just engage with these overarching sweeping narratives? You know, and an Adamah, our mission is to cultivate vibrant Jewish life in deep connection with the earth. We try to do that through immersive experiences in Jewish environmental education, leadership development, and climate action in 2 retreat centers in Baltimore and New England, Pearlson and Isabel Friedman, 6 hubs, New York, Baltimore, Detroit, Atlanta, LA, San Francisco, hopefully more opening soon. Many dozens of chapters of teens around the country, 55 Adamah campus chapters, 500 coalition members of our Climate Action Coalition, over 800 members of the Jewish Green Business Network. That is the constituency of over 45,000 people we engaged in 2025 that we want to try to bring this ethos to, of this dialogue, of this heart open, approach, to be the change we wish to see in the world, to live the values of peoplehood and planethood. And as Itamar also said, sort of to see, and Rina also said, our children, right, our youth, to see transformation as Tareq and Rina do every day in the work of the Arava Institute, to see that transformation, to believe in it, to practice it for ourselves, our families, our communities. And from that place to back into the long view and to see the progress and see the impact. That, as Francis Moore Lappy says, author of A Diet for a Small Planet, hope is a stance. It's not an assessment. If you were to only read the media reports and the conventional media in the United States, hard to have that stance. But we know better. So if now is not the time, when is the time? We need, I think Rina said, we need a world full of people who have come alive, right? And to ask ourselves, what are we afraid of? How do we feel whole? How do we create a beautiful world together? The potential for Adamah and Arava together is really amazing. We want to invite everyone here to think about that together with us. As Itamar said, sometimes the question is as good as any answer we might give. How can the earth help heal us, help us heal? What can Adamah and the Arava do together? Because, and I love this one, Tareq, you cannot hide the sun with your hand. There are some truths that we are not going to get away from. So how do we step into it? To embrace our shared destiny as Israelis, Palestinians, Americans, Jews, Muslims, Christians, as human beings on planet Earth, to not give up our joy, our love, our compassion, our hope, to build trust, not to give into fear, to live with courage, to connect and learn from others, to refuse to be enemies, to refuse to give up our humanity, to be in solidarity with everyone, to know that the power of love is greater than the pain of the conflict. May we do more together. May we continue this dialogue. Happy Earth Day, everyone. Shalom, Salam. Peace.